Welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Your Knicks are up 3-1 on the Philadelphia 76ers. Knicks fans take over Wells Fargo Center, get it to almost 50-50 in that building, and Jalen Brunson responds in kind with a Knicks playoff high for a single game. First 40-10 game in Knicks history, and the Knicks finally figured out Joel Embiid late in this game. All that and more next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. And we want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us a part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode, especially today, because I think, surprise, we're probably going to have a bonus episode out for you guys. So you want to make sure you don't miss that a little later today. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, as you can find at thestrick.land. And he's Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And Gavin, in this case, you were probably the envy of many Knicks fans because you were in the building for this game, got to witness this Jalen Brunson masterclass, this Knicks dominant 3-1 lead-taking victory in person. We'll talk about it more later, about the large-scale vibes and the Joel Embiid of it all, complaining about things after the game. But real quick, before we get into this and Jalen Brunson's huge day, what was the vibe like in Wells Fargo Center, a.k.a. MSG West, number one, number two? I don't know. There's a lot of MSG West, but yeah, how'd it go?
It was really cool, Alex. I was telling you before the show, this was my first ever Knicks playoff game. I waited 29 years of life, and you know what? I'm going to say it was absolutely worth the wait. Incredible experience. My section was about 70% Knicks fans, so it was a good vibe throughout. You would have appreciated it. I was going back and forth with some Sixers fans who had, let's just say, an inflated opinion of Joel Embiid. They left early. They left with about a minute left, so that was fun to see. Didn't quite get a final word in there, but you know what? You didn't really have to, the way this game went, and just watching Jalen Brunson go to work is something I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, because this is kind of like, if you want to boil down the heart of this team, there were so many opportunities in this game to let go of the rope. Down three pretty crucial rotation pieces with obviously no Julius Randle, no Mitchell Robinson, and Bojan Bogdanovic playing all of a minute, probably not even a minute, more like 30 seconds in this game. And yet Tibbs is like, all right, we're going to a 7-man rotation. All right, Isaiah Hartenstein picked up 5 fouls in the third quarter. OG, you're giving up 4 inches and 50 pounds. You're guarding Joel Embiid. And none of it mattered because Jalen Brunson was just that good, just that magical, didn't let this team give it away. Josh Hart, on a night where he wasn't particularly good, had 17 rebounds. OG Anunoby, 47 minutes, 16 points, 14 boards, 3 blocks, shut down Embiid down the stretch. What did Embiid have? 1 point in the fourth quarter? I mean, come on. Like that's the best scorer on planet Earth, a guy who's putting together the second best scoring season in NBA history. And Anunoby said, nope, I don't care. The way they played on a string in the fourth quarter, and every time they needed some magic, Jalen Brunson had some for them. So it was extraordinary. Like I'm running out of gas. We're only 4 minutes in, so I'm gonna throw it back to you. But once in a lifetime experience for me.
Yeah, and even just from a viewing perspective, it was obvious how much like Knicks fan energy was in there and how much Jalen Brunson was feeding off of that. I mean, there was even in some of the key moments late in the game, it looked like he was at MSG, like being able to just like scream into the crowd and like, you know, get pumped up and find a Knicks fan to like point out and be like, let's go. Like
I couldn't believe he still, I know he normally does this in road games, but the 3 kiss to the crowd, like it felt like MSG, because people were just erupting when he did that. And like it did feel like he was at home.
Yeah. And I mean, he certainly played like it. Honestly, I just hope that he plays at home like he did on the road when he gets back to MSG, because obviously the first 2 games were a little bit of a struggle for him. But I think the big thing was he finally kind of figured out a matchup that worked for him. And I mean, he was doing some of the stuff that we had mentioned before of like, oh, this seems like it's working, but then was doing even more than that. Like, I mean, he was using early on in this game, he used Isaiah Hartenstein as a way to free himself up and, find his way to some easy mid-range buckets, to some threes. He also was getting 3-point opportunities from Josh Hart and from other players, as they would, on the plays where someone else would kind of handle the ball and kind of get things going, even if it was real quick, like Brunson would give it off to Hart, who then would start, charging towards the hoop, and Brunson would just kind of leak to the corner. There was one really good open look that he got, I think, in the first quarter that way, where I was like, oh, go do that again. Like, that was really smart. Like, he just kind of did a quick handoff to Hart. Hart made like he was going to go in, which meant that everybody was paying attention to Hart. And then Brunson just sort of silently found his way over to the corner, got a wide open look, probably one of the most wide open looks he's gotten all series, doing that. Of course, that one didn't go in, but like the spirit was there. And then late in this game, I thought that they were really smart in trying to find the right matchup for him. We've seen that Kelly Oubre, and we've given Kelly Oubre his props, like in the early parts of this series. Like, he was still doing a pretty solid job on Brunson when he was allowed to stay on him. But luckily, the Knicks identified that that's the toughest matchup on the floor for Brunson. And they were continually trying to find ways to get him out of that matchup. And they kept doing it. Like, they were generating good switches. Tobias Harris, to me, was the number one, where like every time Tobias Harris ended up on Brunson, I'm like, good, there's some points. Like, he can't do anything to stop Jalen Brunson. Like, he's too slow. He's not like ridiculously long or laterally quick or anything else to like do anything to combat playing against Jalen Brunson. Like, good, this is awesome. But there's credit due to some of the other players on the team too. Like, Hart didn't necessarily score that much, but was still putting pressure on the defense. OG Anunoby, especially in the first half, put so much rim pressure on the Sixers that then it opened things up more for Brunson later on, because even when guys weren't scoring as much down the stretch and it was mostly Brunson, carrying the load, it was okay because the threat was there. Like, they were clearly thinking about, oh, what if OG Anunoby gets inside? Like, we gotta have safeguards to prevent that, because he was just going full bull in a China shop early on. But yeah, it was just it's crazy that he almost scored 50 points and only hit 2 out of 8 from 3. Like, and only took like, I say only, I mean, it seems like a low number compared to the guy across the way, but like only took 11 free throws and yet still managed to get to 47 points. Just a crazy scoring performance for him. And one that I'll remember for a long time too, especially given the stakes. It was just, I mean, it was to this point in his Knicks career, this was his opus. And this was even more so than any of the big scoring games he had this season during the regular season. This is the one that I'm going to remember for a really long time, given the stakes and what the Knicks needed out of him and how big this 3-1 lead is. And of course, now they have to close out the series, but I mean, this was huge and just such a phenomenal game from Jalen Brunson.
I mean, in a game that was just a total defensive war, where the Knicks were just out of firepower. Like I felt like Tibbs was a general going over what munitions the Army had left. It was like, yeah, we have the nuke, but that's it. We're out of guns, we're out of knives, we're out of batons. Like, there's really nothing else, Coach. Sorry. And Jalen accounted for, I mean, scoring and assisting 70 of the 97 Knicks points. He accounted for 32 of the first 35. And just watching it in person, like, I kept coming back to what I think watching on TV, which is, all right, this is great, but how long can he keep this up? How much does he have in the tank? And the Knicks, like, credit Tom Thibodeau. Maybe we'll talk about this more later. Like, I thought one of, like, maybe my favorite game he's ever coached as a Knicks fan. Like, he's had a few of those this year. He's gotten so much better, but his ability to buy Jalen 4 minutes in this game and the rest of the roster to figure it out when they had, I go back to game 6 against the Heat last year, where the Knicks were just murdered in the 7 minutes in that game 6. Brunson was off the floor. I can't remember, but it was something like minus 10 in like a 2-minute stretch where Deuce was out there. The game completely flipped, and the Knicks' ability, again, down Bogey, down Randall, down Mitch, to just tread water during that time was so crucial. Alex, I want to get into some of the extraordinary shots that Jalen hit throughout, because there were just a few moments that stood out to me that I think deserve to be highlighted and kind of show that he is, like, the bounce back from the first 2 games where he just didn't seem like he was in a good place athletically, a good place physically, to this, which is like the apex of how he's moved this season. I want to get into that. So we'll talk about that. And we want to get into OG Anunoby and what was one of his banner days as a Knick next on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we want to let you know about our good friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. How about the 2024 Nissan Rogue? It's perfect for city drives and great escapes. And it features class exclusive Google built in, which is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. So gone are the days of connecting your phone, because Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right in to the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. But let's say you want to go a little bigger, you could check out the 2024 Nissan Armada. It'll change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style, and you could tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com.
And we also wanted to tell you about our good friends over at Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there is so much more good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot Panchico machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent freezes. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, I needed to do this Jalen Brunson game justice, Alex, because I went back, I watched all of his made shots. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything in person. Got the first 7 points of the game for the Knicks, set up iHeart on a really nice slip in traffic twice in a row. The first play that really got the crowd going, the Knicks crowd that is when he just put Batum in a blender in transition, like that nasty crossover into the floater that Batum seemed like he might have CTE after that. Like he was just spinning. And at that point it was 29-25 and it was like, oh, Brunson's pretty much done everything so far. And I want to go back almost and watch the first 2 games of this series and maybe it'll be some point in the offseason, but like he couldn't get away from Oubre. He couldn't get away from Batum. And now he's just exploding by these guys easily. I think part of it is that he's leaning even heavier into rejecting screens. He already led the NBA in doing that in the regular season, but it's really throwing them off. And I think that's a testament to Hartenstein. And when he was healthy, Mitchell Robinson, they've clearly been setting better screens. I mean, Brunson got 2 different threes off just brilliant screens from Hartenstein. Like the first 3 hit of the game was Hartenstein flipping the screen at the last second, Brunson getting right around it, Embiid in deep drop. Brunson had 5 feet of space. The one he hit in the third quarter to answer Embiid and Oubre hitting those back-to-back threes after Dante hit 2 threes in a row. This was maybe the sequence of the game. And then Brunson hits another one because the Knicks get an off-ball switch and Batum Batum was trying to switch. Hartenstein recognizes it, just turns into a pin down on Batum. Embiid's supposed to be guarding Brunson. Embiid's in La La Land. Brunson just pops out, catches 3. The screen games are so good. And because of that, the Sixers are really trying to lean into the screens and anticipate them. And it's that thing in football where you're gearing up to get hit, and then all of a sudden the players just go in the opposite direction. Brunson did that over and over again with great success. I mean, ending the third quarter by foul baiting Melton, stepping through into an and one. That was great. The sequence when it was 60-51, that to me felt like the most dangerous point in this game for the Knicks. It just sort of, you got the sense Philly was about to pull away. Brunson has 3 straight buckets. The first one was the best of them. Between the legs 3 times. Almost felt like a boxing match between him and Tobias Harris. And it was like punch, 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 and then the knockout and one jumper. That was sick. Hit a midi and then a duck in under Harris for that little push shot on what was almost a post up with the shot clock running out. He was torturing Harris, to your point. The screen rejections again late in the game. The shot on Embiid that I didn't want to say this when we were there because there were Philly fans in the area. Embiid played insane defense on that play. It was a magical shot by Brunson. 1-2 step to the elbow over Embiid, off the rim, off the backboard and in. And then just the final one where Embiid was exhausted, doubling him, and Brunson just looks back to the 3-point line, turns, lays it in. I don't want to overdo it. I don't always enjoy when I go over every single second of the game. I'm like, you guys just watch this, but it was just one of those nights, Alex, where like I want every shot from him to be appreciated because it's not normal. Like every shot would be like a career highlight for someone, and for Brunson, it was just like, yeah, just another day at the office.
Yeah, it really just underscores just how good he is at his best. Like, there's just when he's cooking, he makes the extraordinary look ordinary. And, he did a lot of that in this game. And, I think even in the first two games, we kept saying like he's not necessarily having his life made exponentially more harder than it has been this year. Yet, the shots just kind of weren't going in. The floaters weren't going in. The middies weren't going in. The open threes weren't going in. And now he's just kind of back to himself. He's back in post All-Star break Brunson form, or just really post January 1st Brunson form. Like really ever since the OG Anunoby trade, obviously, especially after the Randall injury, like when he really had to step up and become the whole offense. Like, I mean, this is just this kind of the norm for him. So, he's back to himself and he's back doing, Jalen Brunson things, I guess. But I want to shift the conversation to OG Anunoby because I think he deserves a lot of credit for this offense working as well as it did in this game. He winds up going, he actually didn't hit a three in this game, which has the three has been a big part of his impact the first few games of the series, but ends up with 16 points, 14 boards, shoots 8 of 16, 0-4 from three. But his contributions driving to the hoop were so insanely big in that first half. Like, and I think I mentioned it a minute ago, I think it carried over to the second half. Like him getting downhill like that and just deciding, he was getting that matchup with Tobias Harris a lot. Or sometimes Maxi or, whoever, like him basically just being like, oh yeah, I have a really great first step. Like I should just get inside and just challenge these guys every single time I have the ball. Like just put the ball on the floor, take a big first step, get ahead of steam, get all the way in there and just crash bodies and see what I can do. And a couple of times it didn't work out for him. Like a couple of times it was actually a little ugly, I would say. Like there was one, I want to say he got blocked by Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
But like he kind of like drove in and looked a little reckless, and you're like, come on, man, like going with a little more of a plan. But ultimately it paid off because he had them kind of running scared of that idea of him driving into the hoop like that for the rest of the game. And it really shaped a lot of what the Knicks were able to do the rest of the way out, and a lot of what he was able to do the rest of the way out. So I give him huge props for that. I thought it was a fantastic game for him. I mean, this was a true game where, I mean, it wasn't like when you look at the scoreboard in the end, with like 16 points, he was the second highest scorer, but like it's not like, it didn't feel like a game where like Brunson and Randall were trading buckets or whatever, where he felt like a true like number two. But yet also he did feel like a true number two in this game because it felt like he did everything that was necessary to at least make the Sixers fear him in a way that then opened things up for Brunson and for others as the game went on. And that was really all he had to do, to say nothing of the huge contributions he made on defense, which I think we'll probably get into a little better in the next segment when we talk about the defense specifically, and what they were able to do down the stretch this game. But just offensively, first off, like I thought OG had a huge impact and was a really big part of what made the Knicks offense tick in this game.
I'm totally with you, and this is reaching way back to a play that I think people probably don't really remember, but there was that moment late in game two where he had Lowry on him and he drove right by him. Lowry kind of hit him on the arm and he dunked the ball and it got wiped off because they called a foul on Lowry. But that's happened a few times this series, and honestly, a few times this season where and maybe I should have done a better job highlighting it on the podcast, but all I could think was why doesn't he do this every single time? Like especially when he gets a mismatch. Like he as a wing, is almost always going to have a strength advantage. And it's kind of few and far between him putting his shoulder down and getting all the way to the rim. Like we see him on dump offs, like he's great, right? No one screws with him around the basket. But in terms of driving and just creating a shot all his own, like it's not his inclination. And I don't know if it was Tibbs saying, "Hey, we don't have any other options at this point with Bogey out. Like you need to do this. Like Dante's not having a good game. Hart's not having a good game offensively. Like we need this from you." Or if it just clicked for him in film, like, wait, I have that advantage. But whatever neurons connected, like it saved the Knicks in this one. I mean, the early dunk where Embiid just made a business decision, got out of the way, that sent a message. The coast to coast off a rebound where he did his best Josh Hart impersonation, just put a shoulder into Embiid and laid it home. Like, I don't think I've ever seen him do that. Early fourth quarter, when the Knicks were starving for buckets and it was super frustrating, it was Precious had just missed a dunk, and it was again one of those moments where it was like, all right, Brunson's out for 2 minutes. That could be the ball game if the Sixers hit 3 threes and get up by 8 or 9 here. And OG, I mean, he definitely didn't let it happen defensively, but offensively, like a stop drive right by Tobias Harris. And then the dunk that made it 86-81. And that was right before Brunson came back in, and you almost felt like the Knicks won the game there because, like, all right, they extended the lead with Brunson on the back. And that time is OG driving, drawing two, slipping to Precious. Precious misses. Precious gets it back, shuffles it to OG. OG, like, kind of a soft dunk on Embiid that bounced off the rim, but 2 points is 2 points. He was extraordinary on offense, and it didn't even come close to the level he played defensively. So I want to talk about that next, Alex, on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we're going to let you guys know about our good friends over at DoorDash. Do you want to make mom smile? Start Mother's Day with flowers or surprise her with gifts from the brand she loves, delivered the very same day with DoorDash. Does mom have a sweet tooth? Is she a tech enthusiast, a beauty connoisseur? Or is she outdoorsy? No matter what she's into, you can make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and more. Get thoughtful gifts she deserves with the convenience you need. Choose same-day delivery or schedule a week ahead for when flowers and gifts should arrive to her door with DoorDash. So get a Mother's Day gift as unique as she is with DoorDash. Use code LOCKEDONNBA and get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. All right, Gavin, we're back in, and you alluded to it before the break that OG Anunoby's defense was perhaps the thing that popped the most in this game for as good as his offense was, and I'm in full agreement. Quite literally, it changed the entire series, I think. I think the Knicks now, this is the skeleton key. And I mean, we sort of have always known this about OG Anunoby. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA, not just on the Knicks. Like, legitimately, probably if you take the injuries and stuff out of it for him, and the fact that he's had some trouble like staying on the court at times in his career, like, you could probably make a case that he's a just on pure talent alone, probably a top 5 defender in the entire NBA. Like, I don't think that's a stretch. And but our reservation with him coming into the series was like, there's not really a perfect matchup for him, right? Because like Tyrese Maxey, we saw early on, like the Knicks, their strategy was let's throw OG on Tyrese Maxey. OG's the best wing defender that we have. That's their best wing player. But Maxey really needs like, honestly, the guy that the Knicks had earlier this season that they traded for OG probably would have been perfect to throw on Maxey, like an Emmanuel Quickly type. You need someone who's like a little shiftier, and we've seen that with Deuce McBride, where he's played much better on Tyrese Maxey than I think anyone on the Knicks has been able to. And then we were sort of speculating going into the series, like, oh, what about OG Anunoby on Joel Embiid? And it's like, I don't know, like, he's Embiid's so huge, like, he gets around the rim, and is OG going to be able to hold up there? And on some switches earlier in the series, it wasn't working out super great. And OG definitely got like out muscled a couple times when he got switched onto Embiid, and it sort of just confirmed what we thought was there, which was like, probably not for the best to have OG guarding Embiid for long periods of time. And yet, in this game, the Knicks definitely, I think because they knew they were down Mitchell Robinson and knew they were going to have to keep Isaiah Hartenstein's fouls in check, they were showing a much greater inclination towards getting OG switched onto Embiid early and often in this game. And they like weren't running away from it, I guess would be the way to say it. Like for the first 3 games of the series, it seemed like the goal was always to have Mitchell Robinson or Isaiah Hartenstein on Joel Embiid 24/7. And it worked out really good in games 1 and 2 with Mitch in game 1 and Hartenstein in game 2. But then we saw in the last game, like Hartenstein kind of struggle with Embiid a bit, fall victim to some of the fouling tendencies, that Embiid can bring out of people. And then we obviously saw Embiid intentionally injure Mitchell Robinson in game 3 and get away with that without getting thrown out of the game, which I will never let go of for the rest of my days. But but then in this game, you're coming in without Mitchell Robinson. And so there was a concerted effort, it seemed like, to get Anunoby switched onto Embiid from time to time to keep things in check for Hartenstein. And then Hartenstein comes out in the third quarter, and after playing the cleanest half he's played the entire series so far in the first half, gets 0 personal fouls in the first half, which was massively impressive. He comes out and he's doing stuff you can't do against Joel Embiid. Like Embiid, his number one move is, start driving. And if you get a hand anywhere in towards his chest or anything, he's going to flail and throw the ball in the air like James Harden in 2016. And somehow, even though the NBA has allegedly gotten rid of the swipe through thing, he's going to get that foul call every single time. And Hartenstein just kept doing that. And then he damn near fouled himself out of the game in 1 quarter, which is insane. So then the Knicks put Precious in there and have Anunoby in there, and Anunoby becomes the full-time defender on Embiid. And I thought this was so brilliant, Gavin, because, and I'll let you get into how it popped like in person here, but like it just worked. Like Anunoby was playing more of a ball denial style on Embiid, like just trying to keep the ball away from him, period. Like don't even let the ball get to him. And then when Embiid would get the ball, they were throwing intense doubles at him Anunoby was like, okay, I can hold my own for like 3 seconds. So sometime in those like 3 seconds, get over here and make a swipe at the ball, or just get your hands up and surround him and try to make him panic. And even like Jalen Brunson providing that pressure rattled Embiid. And then Precious was the real like superstar of this whole arrangement, because then he was doing such an amazing job of figuring out, like assessing the situation and figuring out, do I need to stay low to try to, prevent whatever's about to happen off this Embiid pass, if someone's going to drive in, or do I need to just book it out to the perimeter after everybody else rotates to make up for the person who just doubled, and go find the open man and get a contest on them? And wherever the ball ended up, Precious was there. And it was brilliant. It was a stroke of genius by Tibbs to let this happen. Granted, his hand was kind of forced by Hartenstein getting 5 fouls, but then it was just brilliantly executed, and it felt very intentional. I don't know if they just figured this out on the fly or what, but it was fantastic. And I think they probably just found the way to stop Embiid in game 5 and potentially wrap this game up at home, or the series up at home, I should say.
Yeah, I think this goes back to not the first game of the series. This goes back to the first game of the season between the two teams. And we went on that podcast after, and I said I thought Anunoby, weirdly enough, and it was very few possessions, small sample size, you weren't sure how much to read into it, looked better guarding Embiid than he did guarding Maxey. And from the get-go in this game, Tibbs, which I really like, this is not an adjustment I think he would have made in the past, and I really liked it. He started OG Anunoby on Tobias Harris, and that totally unlocked Anunoby as a help defender. It's what you and I were advocating for at the beginning of the series. And to be clear, I'm not saying, oh, stupid Tibbs, how did he not see this earlier? Like, it was like there are merits to going both ways, and yet Anunoby's help, like cascading on Anunoby and somewhat containing Maxey, especially in the second half, was essential. Fred Katz made this point, and it was a great one. Like, it turned Anunoby into a rebounder because he wasn't on the perimeter guarding Maxey. Instead, he was around the rim more often than not, and it led to him getting, as we mentioned, 14 boards in this game. And then to your point late, again, I'm going to look to Tom Thibodeau and give him a major compliment. I think in the past, his default would have been, all right, this worked great for 8 minutes. It's not sustainable. OG Anunoby's 4 inches shorter than Joel Embiid. Therefore, logically, even though he's been guarding him well for 8 minutes, he can't guard him well. I'm going to put Isaiah Hartenstein back in with 5 fouls and let him try to figure it out and play the rest of the time. And instead, he just stuck with it. And it was Anunoby. I mean, it just screwed with Embiid. It is hard to overstate. Again, I'm curious. I'm going to do a full rewatch of the game tomorrow. I wonder how clear that was on TV versus in person. But Embiid wanted no part of that matchup. He was annoyed. He was pushing. He was shoving. He was drenched in sweat. It was not because he's out of shape. Maybe it was a little bit because he's out of shape, but it's mostly because OG was screwing with him, and OG is freaking strong and was shoving him off his spots, pushing him away from the basket. And Embiid knew every single time he caught it that he didn't want any part of attacking Anunoby off the dribble. The jumper was not falling the way it was in game 3, so he didn't feel comfortable shooting over Anunoby, and he knew that help was coming. And when that help came, the Knicks rotated on pinpoint the entire rest of the game. And the play that summed it up was, what was it, with 2.5 minutes left in the game, Brunson comes over on Tyrese Maxey, totally contains him. Deuce comes over to trap. Maxey bails it out to Lowry at the top of the key. Lowry thinks he is a straight on 3. OG rotates off of Embiid, gets a great contest on Lowry. Lowry at the last second forced to pivot, pass the ball to Embiid, and who comes in? Precious Achiuwa, who was fantastic the entire second half, swats Embiid, shot clock violation. And I think that sequence, the entire fourth quarter, led to Embiid after the Knicks were trying to blow this game, which we haven't got to talk to yet, missing all their free throws. Embiid gets a wide open 7-foot jumper. That would not have been a second thought. I know it's coming off a screen. It's not normally how he likes to shoot it. It wouldn't have been a second thought previously in this game. Instead, panics, pees down his leg a little, drives, Precious swats him at the rim. Hart misses 2 free throws. Lowry misses a 3 on the other end. Ball game, but that all starts with what OG was doing throughout the entire fourth quarter. Embiid was shook, and it won the game for the Knicks.
Yeah, and I think this was so far the signature game for OG Anunoby as a Knick. This is truly, when you talk about why you go and get a guy like this, this is a game why, because it's like he solves the unsolvable problems on defense. Like, I'm convinced now that he could pretty much guard outside of a player like a Tyrese Maxey, which there's only like maybe 4 of in the NBA, like the ultra shifty, ultra fast guard. I don't think there's a single player that OG Anunoby can't guard. And he even had a couple moments against Maxey. He just got caught flat-footed a little too often in games 1 and 2. But I mean, he can literally guard anyone in the NBA, and that's why you pick him up. That's why you trade 2 guys with a lot of promise in Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett for him midseason. That's why you are probably going to pay him a substantial sum of money this coming offseason and not blink. Because if you've got a team that, next year full strength has Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, hopefully playing at their best and being like 2 superstars that can get all the buckets for you and whatever. If you've got him on the other end, you've got one of the best defensive superstars in the entire NBA who can influence entire games and take entire MVP caliber players out of games by himself, just by being as good of a defender as he is. So, I look forward to seeing what the rest of the playoffs holds for him. We still have a lot of meat left on the bone here, Gavin, though. And I think we're running a little long in this first show. So for those of you listening to this, keep your ears out. We're not going to put it out too late, but we're going to put out a bonus episode getting a little deeper into some of the things that worked in this game, talk about what we're expecting for game 5, talk about, unfortunately, the news that Bojan Bogdanovic goes down in this game with what looked like an ankle or foot injury, was diagnosed a ankle contusion, I believe was the official diagnosis that the Knicks came out with. So we'll talk about that, talk about another good game from Deuce McBride, and why Dante DiVincenzo is struggling a little bit. So that's going to be in part 2 of our coverage today, because obviously a game this big can't fit it all in one episode. But keep your ears out for that. Keep your eyes out on YouTube. Set up your notification bell on YouTube. Set up your auto download function on your favorite podcast app. Make sure you don't miss that episode. And we'll see you guys a little later today. Peace out.